Okay, so in this video, we're going to take a look at how we can convert percentages into fractions. And there's one that you might already be familiar with, and that is that 50% is the same as a half. But how do we achieve this result? Well, we're lucky. There's a neat little formula that we can use that says x% is equal to x divided by 100. So for example, if we have to do 43%, that's the same as 43 over 100. Or 37% is the same as 37 over 100. Or if we do the one up the top, 50% is the same as 50 over 100. So the neat little formula is great. That gets our percentages into a fractional form pretty quickly. But you'll notice here that for this 50%, we get a half. And this 50%, we get 50 over 100. Now, these are in fact equal, but the half is a simpler way of writing this 50 over 100. So that's where the trickier bit comes into play, that we have to simplify these fractions down. So how do we do that? Well, if we rub this out, and we'll start off with the 50 over 100 one. So 50%, and I'll do this one in red. So 50% is the same as writing 50 over 100. So we do that using our formula on the left. And remember, with equivalent fractions, anything that we do to the top, we do to the bottom, and then we end up with an equivalent fraction. So for example, if we do 50 and we see that both of these are divisible by 10. So 50 divided by 10 and 100 divided by 10 both work. And this is clearly indicated by them both ending in a 0. So whenever you see both numbers ending in a 0, we want to divide both by 10. That's a really neat little trick. So we kick off both of these zeros, and we end up with 5 over 10. Well, both of these numbers can be divided through again. Both of these are divisible by 5. So divide the top one by 5, divide the bottom one by 5, and 5 divided by 5 gives us 1, and 10 divided by 5 gives us 2. And that there is the same as the half here. So that's our final answer. That's our simplest form, is that 50% is the same as a half. Well, let's do another example. Let's do 44%. Well, we know that that can be written as 44 over 100. Okay, but what are both of these divisible by? Well, they're both even numbers, so we can divide both by 2. So what do we end up with? Well, 44 divided by 2 gives us 22, and 100 divided by 2 gives us 50. And both of these are even numbers, so we can divide through by 2 again. So 22 divided by 2 gives us 11, and 50 divided by 2 gives us 25. Now 11 is a prime number, which means it can only be divided by 11 and 1. So it can only be divided by 1 and itself. But we see that 25 isn't divisible by 11 or 1. So this is in its simplest form. 11 over 25 is the final answer, because there's nothing that can divide into 11 and 25. So let's look at one more example, and I'll do this one in yellow. Let's look at 8%. Well, using our formula, 8% can be written as 8 over 100. And so both of these are divisible by 2. They're both even numbers, so let's divide both through by 2. And what do we end up with? Well, we see that 8 divided by 2 is 4, 100 divided by 2 is 50. And both of these are even numbers, so we can double down again. So let's divide both of these by 2. And we end up with 2 over 25. Now, the only thing that 2 can be divided by is 1 in itself, because it's a prime number, okay, but 25 can't be divided by 2. So this is in its simplest form. So 2 out of 25 is the simplest fractional form for 8%. So that's a neat little video on how we can convert percentages into fractions.